Phails, he's on the ocean without any sails, a sinking ship without a pail. Whoa, Phails, Phails. Life ain't always about the sink or swim. Life ain't always about chasing the wind. Whoa, Phails. Welcome to Phails. My name is Philip, and today I'm going to fail at photography, filmmaking, all the things that Jorge's a master at. Everybody welcome to the show, Jorge. He's a freelance filmmaker. He's been a director of photography. He's been in this industry for a long, long time. I'm really glad to have you here to learn from and to pick your brain.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You've been in the space like less than 10, 15 minutes and already dialed in my setup here.
I gave a little pass through on all these cameras.
Oh my God. And he's really significantly set it up and improved the setup. And in that short amount of time, I realize how many systems there are going on here.
Yeah.
And how much I'm missing or you know, the amount of detail at every step is immense.
It's a lot. I mean, they say it takes a village, to make a movie.
Yeah.
And there really is like so many things. You have, everything from crafty, best boy electrics, best boy grips, gaffers. You have more grips on top of that. You have your first assistant, second assistant, camera assistants, script notes, script supervisor, assistant director, second assistant director. I mean, on the big like tier 1, 2, 3 productions, like SAG level stuff that you find in Hollywood, there's so many people. And then on top of that, it's like food. You have to feed them all.
Yeah.
It's wild.
There's a ton of folks supporting what's going on the other side of the camera.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in my setup, I'm failing. And a part of that journey is throwing myself into the deep end. And that's what I'm doing.
You're doing them all. You're literally like handling all of the of the jobs right now.
You guys might not see it, but we've got in this room, we've got three-point lighting. We've got 3 cameras that are all 6K Blackmagic pocket cams. We've got audio with these SM7Bs and a mixer, a Rodecaster, and just a tons going on with each system.
Yeah.
In the brief moment we've been talking, it's like, oh, I've heard Jorge say, oh, you're recording in RAW, and I was like. Our conversation started with me asking Jorge, man, these file sizes are huge. I need to find a hard drive. And you're like, okay, well, if this is the hard drive you might need, or that might be the hard drive you need. But then as we go further down the chain, he's like, whoa, dude, you're recording in Blackmagic RAW. No wonder you need hard drives. You're getting file sizes in the 200 and 300 gigs.
Yeah, they're massive.
They're massive. So maybe it's not I need hard drives. Maybe it's I need to record these at a different codec or compression level.
Precisely. Believe it or not, film was actually simpler when you could shoot on like 16 or 35 millimeter film because you were just worrying about exposing that and then doing a transfer. But now you have so much digital integration with all of this technology that's cheap and available to us that there's so many little intricate steps in between that you have to learn it all and you have to keep up with it. And if you don't, you're not in it anymore. It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. So, for you coming at this like very entry level, I mean, this is the perfect way to do it because you were literally like failing at it and it's working out well. You get people like me here.
Yeah.
And that's me like, well, you could try this, but that's how you learn. I mean, my entire career was just failing. And, figuring stuff out the hard way. So
yeah, one part of this show is I've had this idea of the binary being success on this side,
right.
Trophy, accolades, and on the other side, failure.
Right.
And I'm changing that paradigm to success is still over here. Success is still the goal, but over this side is not starting or quitting.
Totally.
And what happens in between that is all failure.
It's all failing.
All failure.
There's no difference. I mean, I would still like people consider me successful now, but I'm failing all the time still. You know? still failing.
Yeah. That's a great segue into Phails 5 questions. Jorge knows about this a little bit because he was producing the podcast we had with Paz just about a week ago or so, maybe less. And he's heard some of these questions. Some of them will be the same, so you'll get a repeat. Let's start with, how would someone fail at photography, cinematography? How would someone fail at what I'm doing?
How would someone fail at what you're doing? You're doing it, I think. I mean, I think, I see you coming into it, and you have the concept in your mind, you have the idea of what you want to do, and you're just going out and you're trying it. You're playing with the equipment. You've set it up here in the living room here, and you've already had this vision of how you want to kind of go and do it. And that's precisely the best way of doing it, I think. You can hire people, to help you like manage that stuff, but you're not going to really learn it, I think, if you are like not doing it yourself, I guess. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
We want to like get over here, like you were saying, to that success part.
Right.
But if you don't really like try out and feel like the road for yourself, so to speak, like if you don't go down that road to experience it, you're not going to know how to get there.
Yeah.
You're not going to find the best way to get there.
Yeah.
That makes any sense, I think what you're doing is a perfect example of how to not only fail, but how to get to that part here.
Success point.
Yeah.
And some of the places I've already failed are I'm learning. Success and learning are synonymous, I think. Here is recording at this extremely high, like raw file size, and then having the f-stop be at 6 when it could have been at 2, letting in more light, and then exposing more of the colors and more of the dynamic range. And then I failed first not having these parchment papers on the lights, and then for the first whole set of interviews, I just had this like blaring in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then on this set, I've put these parchment papers on, and it's softer light.
It is, yeah. It feels nice to be underneath it too, like rather than having like a big glaring thing shining at you.
Oh my God. Yeah.
This is great.
Those poor first folks. I did a whole set of interviews. This is the second time I've checked out this equipment, and this I think has gotten better, but also there's so much more to learn. What do you see as success? What kind of behaviors, what kind of checklist do you see folks using or adopting in order to find success with these types of endeavors?
I get asked a lot, like, should I go to film school? Like, is something that, like, is film school gonna be good for me as a filmmaker? I went to film school.
Yeah,
I've studied at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and whenever I get asked that question, like, SVA was great for me, but that's my story. That was my journey. Like, I think school worked great for me. I think every person has their own journey and learning experience when it comes to it. And I think for some people, it's not as simple as whether or not it's going to work for you. Like, if you go to it and you find it works for you, it's great. Other people have gone to school and they found that it hasn't worked for them at all. So it's a long way of answering your question, but I think if you're trying to develop like something that's like a successful habit, you need to develop it yourself. I think you can take inspiration from other people, but only you are going to know what's best for you in terms of like your creative approach to a project. You need to set up your environment in a way that I think clicks with you.
Yeah.
So it's a unique thing.
So it's like live and learn kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a very personal. The checklist, the behaviors. It's not like a one size fits all.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, every artist in history has had a different like sleep schedule. Some people like work better in the night. Yeah. I've worked and collaborated with people who are very early risers. I like to be an early riser. I like to get up and try and get as much done in the beginning of the day. That way I can just kind of like sit with the rest of it and take care of whatever errands and stuff like that. But some people work better by just like really sleeping in. Like they take care of like the rest of the day, their errands and like emails and stuff like that from like 12 to 6 p.m. And then as soon as the sun comes down, then they start working like crazy and like work late into the night. And it's the same thing the next day. Yeah. That's too much for me. Yeah. But if they get stuff done, I mean, I know people who publish books that way. Yeah. And that's great. That works for them. I don't fancy that version, but
yeah.
If it works, it works.
Why do you do what you do? Like, yeah, why do you do this?
Why do I do it? Well, it kind of, is the one thing that I feel alive when I'm doing it. I love, getting together with people and like coming up with a vision, an idea, and like bringing that idea to life. It's something that I think is like the journey of being an artist, that they really enjoy experiencing this. When you have a concept and you want to like manifest this and then say like, this is, you kind of can like stand back and say like, I made this, look at me, I am man, I create and I have a voice, and it's compelling. It's a compelling process, I think. And it's something that I think is cool. People can look at art and relate to it. People can look at a piece of media or medium. They don't have to say anything to each other, but you learn something from that. You get a sense of perspective from that.
Yeah.
It's this perfectly placed, like perfectly constructed, like sandwich of information that you can digest and have an experience from it and learn and see something new with it, And I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, man, I thought it's really cool. It reminds me of, I read this book. It was called The Master and His Emissary. I think the name of the author was Ian McGilchrist, but he did this whole thing about logic versus myth.
Mm-hmm.
And something about an art form like poetry or a piece of art on the wall, it bypasses your cognition, it bypasses your conscious mind and hits you in your heart. It hits you in a place
Right.
that you can't exactly explain, but you get it.
Right.
You feel it.
Totally.
And that's magical, isn't it?
Super. Yeah, absolutely.
In this thing, they said, like, back in the day, they wouldn't trust folks that purely acted on logic because logic followed the paychecks. You could pay someone to argue for any position. But poetry, it kind of, you knew it was true because the way it felt, the way it hit you. And that's powerful.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, come. I'm shooting in 3 days.
Yeah, well, I'll be there. I'll be there. No. And I hope that this is kind of takes me into that. Like, I'm not sure how this will play into that pantheon of expression, but there is I'm tiptoeing over there. I'm doing little frog leaps.
You have this really cool approach, which I like and I watched you interviews Pause the other day. You have an open and honest conversation with people. I mean, that's the best thing that you can get. Like letting people really like express themselves, giving them the space to do that, brings something, just real that I think audiences can really connect to. And just like, that's awesome. Just keep that up. Like, I think it's going to work out well.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good hearing that, man. What has been your greatest successes in your career?
I don't know, because I think I'm still kind of trying to reach, like, I have certain ideas of a success, I think continuing to grow my career and like expand my work, like I'd love to be like more, recognized in certain parts of the country and in the world, I think. Mm-hmm. But I will say, like, one thing I did when I was a lot younger and starting out in filmmaking is I went to art school, mm-hmm. and I did a thesis film when I was there, and that was a huge challenge of like filled with just like blind stupidity for me. That was a huge like course in learning how to fail.
Yeah,
because I went to Mexico City. I took like a few people. We all flew down. Some of them paid for their own tickets. Like, I don't know how I got away with that.
Whoa.
But they were an amazing crew, and I managed to shoot like a 78-page script down there. What? And it was in 7 nights, and it was all in like a parking garage in Mexico City. And it was awesome. I mean, I took everything that I like learned in school and applied that to the project, and it did well inside the program. It won a bunch of awards and accolades, and it actually kind of jump-started my career there. And since then, I've done a lot of really cool things. I got the chance to film live surgeries for a while. There was one project I did in the Bronx. It was 2 Siamese twins. They were conjoined by the head.
Oh, dude, you must have a really like tough iron stomach. You would see me passed out on the floor, like 2 seconds into filming, I'm like, oh, where's Phil? Oh, he's just passed
It was,
out.
I mean, it was weird. I have to say, I definitely had like a reaction,
Yeah.
like just seeing it, like because I like looking past the lens and like looked at my monitor and like just kind of like registering like certain colors and textures a little bit. I was like, okay, that's what it looks like in the inside of someone's like head.
Oh my God, dude.
But like, you know, it was different. Like in the movies, like everything's like really like oily, saturated blood, just like kind of spilling out. But like they did such a good job in the surgery that was really tidy and doing a lot of maintenance and stuff like that, that it was almost, I mean, it was just a different texture. So I didn't get too queasy, but you know, maybe that's me.
You think of it as not, I have this idea, you're looking at the monitor, you're looking through the lens, there's a separation between you and there's like, it's not subjective, it's objective.
Absolutely.
So it might not be blood, it's red.
Yeah, and you're like your mindset is like if there's content, you need to be able to see the content clearly. You're kind of just like objectively honed in on this, you know, this perspective of like content creation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't bother me. I think I must be graced with something like that. My dad's a doctor too, so
there it is.
I must have gotten some kind of queasiness eliminator from him.
Yeah, I went and had to give blood for labs for my physical the other day, and I passed out.
Oh my God.
I fainted. I woke up what seemed like 10 years later, like I Rip Van Winkled it. There was like, there were like, I don't know. It was probably 3 people around me, but it seemed like an army of nurses all around me, and I was like, I don't know where I am.
They're probably used to it, yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Am I okay? I felt a lot of like nervousness and shame. They handed me a packet of peanut butter crackers and said, go lay down in this room. You'll be okay. I was like, okay. I was like, so
I trust you wholly.
I trust you. Group full of people in what
I've never seen or met.
Smocks. I don't know how I ended up here. I was at my house. I think I had a dream of, anyway. I won't be on those surgical shoots. Or if I am, I don't know. I don't know how that'd be. All right, man. Number 5. Do you have a motto or an ethic or a like something that founds your actions? You're like when you show up to a set, when you show up to talk to a director or a creator, do you have something that's like scaffolding?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot I think I've developed in my toolkit, just like mentally, I think when it comes to a project. My fixation and my journey in what's called the pre-production stage, which is like the moments leading up to the shoot. It's like a 2 or 1 week period where you're like scrambling to get everything, you know, acquired. You got to get all your equipment organized. You got to order stuff from the rental house. You have to find your crew and stuff like that. A lot of that is really just trying to prepare as best as you possibly can before the shoot, before day one. And the hardest part, I think, for me is that pre-production phase where you're really ensuring like you have everything that you need. You've read every script, like a page of the script, you've memorized it all. But as soon as camera's rolling and everyone's in their place and the slate clicks and everything, you really just kind of have to surrender a little bit. Everything that you've planned and everything that all this effort that you've put into the production, because you know there's a certain magic that like presents itself in front of you on set, and there's really there's nothing you can prepare for on the day of, really. If things totally fall flat, you have to just be able to really embrace whatever happens on the set, and you can only prepare so much for that. If you don't really follow that magic, you're kind of putting yourself in a box a little bit. And so, yeah, I think as far as mottos go, I don't think there's just really one thing that I could say. Maybe it's just go with the flow a little bit. Like work hard leading up to the shoot and then just like capture the magic and go with the flow.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that came to my mind was if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail.
Right.
It's like that old saying. And then, you know, once the downbeat from a musical perspective, once there's downbeat, you know, there's no mistakes, only accidentals.
Yeah.
From a musical perspective.
Totally.
Right? And that's because another quote, like the show must go on. And we don't know what magic is.
Right. Yeah.
We really don't know what magic is.
Totally.
So it could be that mistake could end up being, you know, one of the best parts of the shot.
Exactly.
One of the best parts of the movie.
That's exactly true. There was a shoot I just thought of where that happened. I was in upstate New York shooting a little short film, and it was a really great crew. You know, I'd actually never seen the location before going up there, which I try not to do when I'm preparing for a shoot. Usually you do a tech scout, you take photos, you kind of storyboard in accordance to the location or whatever. But there was this little brief moment where we wanted to get a scene with this little girl who was kind of the main character playing outside in the house. And as the sun goes down, we suddenly see like the bushes start lighting up and there were fireflies. Mm-hmm. And there was a scene scripted, and I brought like a little LED that I was going to like tie to like a fishing line so that she could like try and chase fireflies. But we're just like, let's just play with those fireflies. And we got these really great shots of like her holding like a firefly, and it was probably one of the best scenes of the movie. I thought like I was like, that looks like, you know, Emmanuel Lubyansky shot it or something like that. And yeah, it was one of those moments that was like, I didn't have a just direct plan for it other than my backup plan of that fishing line thing. But you know, we said, look, they're out there, let's go shoot it. And we got it. It was great.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. And I believe in that. I really want to capture magic. In these interviews, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Right.
I mean, I have an understanding. I'm failing at something you've got an expertise in. And I'm inviting this practice into my life. And you've invited it into your life for years and years and years, went to school for it and studied it. I got my degree in radio, television, and film, but and I wanted to do commercial music production. I went out to LA and did it out there, and never thought I'd be surrounded by cameras and embarking on something like this.
Right.
So you're like an encyclopedia of knowledge for me to like probe, and so this is a pleasure and a real gift.
Yeah.
Of your time.
Yeah, of course.
What kind of question do you think a young person starting out in this business, what would be a good question to ask? Like if you going into film school could ask you now a question or ask, you know, the master of the craft, what kind of questions do you think are good questions to ask?
Gosh, I mean, I think just as many as possible, really.
Yeah.
I mean, as many as you can get away with.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, everything's changing now, right? Like even before the pandemic, which was like, what, 4 years ago now?
Something like that.
There were different cameras, there were different editing software that people were using. And just within those couple of years, everything's totally different, you know. Phones have kind of taken over. You know, you see like Olivia Rodrigo shot a music video on an iPhone, and it looks awesome. You know,
yeah.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the best kinds of questions are just like the ones that are presently in front of you. Like, don't hesitate to just wonder or linger on like, is it this or is it that? You know, and in certain instances, like you shouldn't ask questions. You should just go out and do it. You know.
Yeah. Let experience be your teacher.
Let experience be your teacher, and also let the experience of others also influence you too. Like learn from them a little bit, like, and collaborate with them. And
yeah,
I think probably one of the things I do is I linger too much on what like people's feedback on like my work. They'll be like, you know, I think, you know, you should be doing this. This is an improvement for how you should do something. And I'll sit with it and I'll be like, is that could be truth? Like there is truth to that.
Yeah.
And then someone else will tell me something completely different. Like, well, there is also truth to that because that is their truth. So which truth should be my truth? And you know, after a while, it's like, you know, just go with your gut a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
I love this. Earlier today, I had an interview with a wonderful man. His name's Oscar, and he's a Mayan Taoist time traveler.
Wow.
And part of our discussion was about truth.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's a capital T truth out there. I think there's small. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is, and what we discussed was like the map is not the territory.
Right.
Meaning that you have your map, I have my map. And this we're both in this room.
Yeah.
And this room, if we both described it, it would be totally different.
Yeah.
What you cue in, what's important to you, what within the frame of your experience, your wisdom, your like what you've been honed in to look at is different than mine.
100%. Yeah.
And so I think there's a way of taking in feedback with a grain of salt and also finding some internal reference for your actions.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that definitely goes without saying. Like, you should read up on a subject as much as you can if you want to learn it better. But ultimately, yeah, you do have to stick with something that hones into to what's inside you, and this is your truth. This is what your voice is telling you to do, because that's the thing. Writers talk about this a lot. They say, should I write what I know, or should I write what I don't know? It's a huge argument in like screenwriting classes all the time. And I see both. Like, I see reasons for both. Like, you should absolutely create some sort of fiction that is wonderful and beautiful and expands outside of the reality, our reality, and of our world.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also something kind of great and about learning someone's honest experience on something. Like when you watch like a biopic, or if you watch a true story, it's cool to learn the outcome of those real conflicts that occurred in life.
Yeah.
There's something special to that. And both are special. You can't argue that one is better than the other, I think. You really can't.
Yeah, I do improv. I've done it for a long time. And one practice in improv is kind of harvesting from your own awareness, from your own passions, what you know and learn and love and your experiences. And then that's kind of a foundation for whatever wildness springs forth.
Right.
And so this might be akin to the mind-body debate. Is the mind separate from the body? Do you write about what you know? Do you write about what you don't know? Well, do we know anything at all, really?
Right. Yeah.
And then I imagine the answer might be just write. Just write.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And fail at it.
Fail it. Yeah, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And learn.
Exactly.
What's captivating for folks?
Yeah.
What grabs attention? What's captivating for you, maybe
Right.
even?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, this is exciting.